revisions with the committee report. That sound good?
Committee reports up under scheduled reports.
It is. Oh, yeah, there it is. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, we'll just remove them now.
You could replace it with
The admin, yeah.
admin building sale.
I'll take that off and then add that on. I've got the notes here.
Okay.
Devin? We've got it recording? All right, thank you, Devin. We've got 2 minutes yet, but we are recording. Devin, you want to fire up the audio? Is it up and going? All right. It is 7 o'clock. We have a live stream. We have a quorum. Let's have a board meeting. Welcome to the, it's the October 12th, 2020 board meeting already. We're calling it to order with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Ed Tritt.
Okay, that one.
Firewall.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed, and welcome.
Thank you.
We'll lead this off with good news, which is Mr. Hilderly.
Yes, we have the good fortune of having with us tonight our new payroll supervisor, Kelly's department, so I'll let her do a formal introduction.
Yeah, so joining us this evening is Emery Canager. Today was his first day. We're super happy to have him. He's really going to fit in with our department well, I believe. We already got him up and running and learning how to process payroll, but I'll let him say a few words if he would like and introduce himself.
Great.
Sure.
My name is Emery Canager, and I'm the new payroll supervisor here at Thompson Public Schools. Today was my first day, so I'm just getting settled in. I'm looking forward to meeting everyone, getting to know everyone, and if you ever need anything or have any questions, please feel free to come by my office.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for coming tonight, Emery.
All right. That leads us to our revisions and approval of agenda.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Going fast tonight. Public comment on agenda items only. Do we have any public comments tonight? We do not. That'll move us to the revisions or the approval of the agenda. I do have a couple of revisions. First, we need to remove the first budget revision from discussion items. That is not ready to go yet. The Finance Committee has just met. We'll have a report from them. That is already under scheduled reports. And we need to add a discussion for the administration building disposal or sale. Could I get a support for that, please?
Support.
No other revisions and roll call vote. Becky?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The agenda is revised, and we are moving on the agenda. First scheduled report of the evening, transportation update, Mr. Ben Newsom.
Are we set up for
Probably.
the podium?
Probably at the podium.
Did you mic the podium?
Nope.
I talk pretty loud, so I don't think I need it.
Okay. Talk loud, Ben.
Can you hear me backwards, Olson? You all right? It's good to see everybody in person again. I will say that this year, everything that's happening, I was very, very confident going into the first day of school, we're gonna have a great startup. And the phones go out at the bus garage the day before Labor Day weekend. So I was a little nervous when the first day of school came and it went off without a hitch. So I will take some of the credit, but those folks right there did an amazing job being organized. This is what we're gonna do, you know, the visual stuff for our little, you know, kids, the way that they did things, even from the first day of school, has been outstanding. So I told you all that, but thank you very, very much. You made our job much easier this year. I think we would all agree, best startup probably we've ever seen. It went really, really well. So thanks again to you guys. Excuse me. We have 956 bus riders right now. That's as of today. Those are registered riders. That's down from about 1,400 last year. So we continue every day to kind of go through the routes. If there's a student we haven't seen, you know, we'll call the family. If you need a bus, maybe they missed the survey. So we're continuing to optimize those as we go. Biggest reason being is the seating charts that are required because of COVID. It's very difficult for us with part-time riders who kind of show up and leave to keep track of everything. So it's a continual thing for us. We do have seating charts every single day. Anytime there's a change, we keep records of those. So in the event something happens, we have that. So that's really what we're working on now. Is we have, as folks come and go, you know, even if a building is closed, maybe it's not really all the way closed, so we're still going to pick up some students. So staying on top of that is how we spend most of our day right now. Buses are being disinfected twice a day in accordance with the state's return to school plan. Bus inspections are going on right now from the state. 100% pass rate, there won't be any issues there. So that should be done at the end of the week. One change to state bus inspections this year is they actually check driver credentials. That's something that hasn't happened before. Make sure drivers have current CDL, valid medical card, and their bus driver education certificate. So again, we're all good there. Again, those will be done at the end of this week. Other than that, all the things that, you know, I've been talking to everybody about since I started, as far as our systems communicating and being facts and data driven, all of that stuff is working very, very well. They have transportation information in e-schools. Everything talks to each other every day. That check and balance, we have to make sure our ridership is accurate. It's very important for us, and it's going really well. That's it for me.
Any questions for Ben?
When the phones go out, is there a way to, because I know it's happened a couple different times now where those phones have gone out. Is there a way to transfer that to like someone's cell phone or so that people can at least get through and
Sure.
so-
I sent my email out via Blackboard to the community, and quite a few parents have been kind enough to put my cell phone all over the internet for the last couple of years.
Well, no, but I mean when they call the
Yeah.
bus garage. So when the phone goes out of the bus garage, you just call our phone supplier and say, transfer the calls right now to my cell phone.
The issue that happened last time, I don't think so.
Okay.
It was something outside of it. I'm sure there's a way.
Okay.
Again, it's our phone service. It's not the district, so
Okay.
we did find some sort of major flaws in the correct permanently, but
Okay.
it's fine.
It is, yeah, it is. I mean, I've had that happen in my business where electricity went out, phone system went out, and all we had to do was call up the phone provider, tell them the number that you wanted switched over to somebody's cell phone. At least it works in a pinch. So, yeah.
I'll give you your numbers, those.
My daughter didn't ride for a week. She was getting a ride from a friend, and I got the call and wanted to know if she's going to be a regular rider or not. And I was like, Ben's doing it, so good job.
And I will say the buses, at least on the route by my house, the times have worked back to a nice consistent time now, and they are very consistent time-wise. So seems to be running smoothly, at least for my house. Any other comments or questions for Ben? Ben, thank you very much. Pleasure seeing you again. Next scheduled report is our monthly finance report. Miss Kelly Glenn.
All right. So the board received the financial documents a week ago anyway. And does the board actually have any questions? I could go over the information or just hit the highlights.
I did not have any questions. I looked through it. Does any other board member have a question? If not, then please hit the highlights for us.
Okay.
The only thing I had was I couldn't open the check register.
You couldn't open the check register.
Yeah, I was messed up on ours too.
It's an XML file, so
Yeah, I had to open it into, like when we got it, it looked messed up, but then if you opened it up into Excel, I was able to access it.
You wanted the HTML format that you saved or something.
It was just the atypical format. That's
Okay.
all. But if we could, I don't know if that was just a one-time or
Sure.
if that was.
I was actually trying to accommodate John, who asked for an editable
Excel.
one so he could sort it.
Right.
But I'll send both versions next time.
Does anyone prefer anything other than an Excel file?
The Excel was great once I was able to access it. I same thing. I looked at it and said, "Whoa, this is wrong." But once I was able to get it open into Excel, it actually worked very great for me. So I know it's easier for him to manipulate what he's looking at with it as well.
you can't even open it in Google Docs right now. So
All right. So other than that,
Other than that, okay.
highlight away.
I will just set general fund cash for the month of September is 5.8 million. I will point out that's just because tax revenues are coming in, tax payments were due in the middle of the month. That's why that most of that money is reflected of that. But it is also reflected. We keep that in the bank account for the month of September versus investing it because we don't receive a state aid payment for the month of September, and then just the way the calendar falls this month, the month of October is a 3-pay month. So that's why cash is a little higher. Total revenue for the period for the end of September is 7.2 million, and total expenditures, just to highlight, is 4.9. And then I also provided the board the comparative so you can see the versus 20 versus 21. And, there are some large variances, but most of that is related to the COVID situation and how things are getting paid out and structured. Any questions from the board?
No, doesn't appear so.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. You have the rest of the highlights there? Or was that it for highlights?
That was the highlights.
That was all the highlights for
That
the
was
month.
it. They hit the highlights.
All right. Thank you very much. Facilities committee meeting. Well, looks like I get to present this one. We did indeed have a facilities committee meeting on October 9th, 2020. Primarily, we were presented with the survey results and some information financial wise from TMP and the associates dealing with the bond issue. Rick, did you have things to add to that?
No, I'll just say that we are going to be meeting with that Building Futures Committee group tomorrow to talk about the survey results and how we want to react to that. In terms of asking the community about their taxes right now is not a fantastic time to be doing that. So we just have to go through those results and try to find the positive nuggets and then react to the other stuff in terms of how we get information to people. We know internally what our facilities issues are. It's hard to tell those things from the outside. So it's time to make sure that we tell our story in a way that help people understand exactly what the needs are. Specifically related to learning, there are some auxiliary needs that have to do with athletics and the pool. That survey information provided us some detail with. So we'll be sorting through it with the committee tomorrow, and the committee will make a decision on how to approach that with the board.
Thank you. And that really was the total of that meeting. It was just a presentation of facts to the Facilities Committee on its way to the Building Futures Committee. So there's nothing more to add to that, unfortunately. The Finance Committee meeting of today, Ms. Brooks.
So just before this meeting, we had a finance committee meeting, and Kelly went over some revisions for the budget from our last end of June budget. It should be in your packet if you have any questions about what it is. We've got some guidance from Rick as to what some of the changes are, but the most important thing is that even with these changes, we still have a fund equity above what was projected, which is pretty exciting news.
Fund equity is 17.4.
It was, hang on, I have the exact number here. So our projected fund equity. Sorry, put the wrong page there. Our initial projected fund equity was going to be 17.32%, and it will, with these adjustments, be 17.58.
17.58.
So
All right.
either way, it's better than what it has been and better than what we projected. And that's with creating some better things in the district, such as putting back in athletic transportation.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Brooks. We are on to discussion items. First thing on our discussion item list is the administration building. Rick?
Now, late this afternoon, I received a purchase offer on the administration building. And I sent the detailed proposal to President Johnson. The offer was for $10,000 for the purchase price of the building. I want to make sure that we're, first of all, the board has time to consider that and give me direction. So I had a conversation with the property specialist with Troon Law and said that the members this evening should have a chance to comment and discuss that number and give the administration any guidance on whether or not that number is acceptable and what would be an acceptable number agreeable to the full board. That tonight is not a night to make a decision, but to have that discussion and defer that decision pending any negotiating to the meeting on the 26th. Now, there's another timeline where the clock is running, and that has to do with the organization who made the offer and their need to get the tax credits and the variance from the city. And I'm advised by the city that that timeline happens on the begins on the 27th, so the day after our next board meeting. If we would want to make all the timelines work for this organization to meet their grant deadlines and, for instance, at the city to go to the planning commission, you have to have 15 days notice in the newspaper and, time for the community to ask questions and things like that. So they have to have an answer to the city by the 27th. So we got a couple of weeks here to work on this potential purchase agreement. So what I would need to come away with tonight is, after discussion, some sort of direction from the board on a number to take to Troon to begin the negotiation process based on the original offer. In terms of how we can discuss it, it has to be discussed openly. A board can go into executive session for the purchase of property, but not for the sale of property. So, all the comments have to be from the board table, and an agreement among board members has to come out of that discussion if you wish me to enter into negotiations. But that was the original offer. And, we know that the building is not in our future plans for use. We know that putting the building out there to the community in a way that comes back as positive and adds value to the community is something that the board has a rich desire to do. So this is good in terms of beginning that conversation. But I will defer to your direction on that number and what you think is reasonable.
Thank you. We'll go around the table here. Tim?
I know there were 2 groups that were interested in it. We only got,
Yeah, I've not heard from the second group, but I know that the timelines that I discussed apply to that group as well.
right,
So if they're going to come forth with some kind of an offer, they would have to do it real quick.
right.
What I'm told from the city is that this group that has made the offer is kind of the Cadillac group for these sorts of renovations in the state of Michigan. So typically, if they're in,
The other
it's
group's
rare
gonna
to see
drop
other
out.
groups jump in as well.
The other group will probably just drop out.
The other group, we did ping them for a response, correct?
We did, and I had a conversation with the other group, and came away from that conversation anticipating that there would be an offer. But again, what happens after those phone calls in that part of the world, I'm not sure. That I'm guessing that they know what one another is doing, and in this case, it resulted in a single offer.
To me, it matters more what they're going to do with the building than the $10,000, to be honest with you. 'Cause,
Yeah, I think we would want to certainly make sure that we covered our own legal costs in the matter.
right.
And I don't know if that does it. But the property would be redeveloped into low-cost senior housing. This particular group does not see value in the current annex structure. I think that they had talked about adding on to the larger building in a architectural way that matched the old architecture. But, they're not at a design phase, so I don't know exactly what it means. But I do know that they were hoping to eliminate that portion of the building and, enhance the overall appearance. And
The end use, however,
the end use is the same for either of these groups. They are interested in developing it for low-cost senior housing.
Ed, thoughts?
Well, this is the first time I had heard about it, prior to the meeting you mentioned that this offer was out there. I don't know. I mean, 10,000, like you say, may not even cover our legal costs for selling it. I mean, at this rate, you might as well give it away for $10,000. And, I admit we had higher offers back well. And I don't know. I just don't know how it's going to all go over both with the rest of the board and publicly, and I think 10,000 is way too little, but like you say, you're only one vote on the board. So I think we ought to be able to get more than 10,000 for that.
Becky?
I would agree. We need an idea of what it's going to cost for our legal fees. Obviously, we don't want to lose money on the building. So I guess that would be our first question is let's get those legal fees covered in the negotiation process. We know it's going to cost $500,000 to demo that building. None of us want to do it. None of us want to pay for that. We don't want that building being gone. That's a part of our community. So from that perspective, if there's a way to convert it into a usable property that would maintain that architectural style and that feel, I think we have to entertain it.
How about at least adding on our legal costs? At least, I mean, if it's going to cost 10,000, but it's 7,000 to have them do up the paperwork, like you say, you might as well just wash your hands of it and give it away. So, I mean, at least cover what it costs to get rid of it.
I would voice the same thing, that we don't want to pay to get rid of it. We don't necessarily think we're going to get rich. However, let's look at all of our costs, legal and otherwise, and make sure that we are at least at that level. That would make me very happy, knowing that the building is going to be repurposed and retain some of its architecture would make me very happy. So,
And I, you know, I think most of these groups, they come in with their own attorneys anyway, and ours is just going to review it. Ours isn't really going to write anything. They're going to write this up, and ours is just going to review it. I would, you know, that's what these guys do all day long. So, and Troon would just really be reviewing.
But again, there's no reason why
Oh,
the
exactly.
buyers can't pay for the
Oh, yeah.
for that
absolutely.
part. And you know, on the other part that kind of is irritating is, you know, hey, we just gave you the offer, but we need it. We need to know something within 2 weeks. And everybody, I don't know. I just get kind of wary of what, for a better word, of when you get pushed up against the wall and put on such a short timeline.
feel like you're buying a car at the 29th of the month.
Yeah, you got to have it now or forget it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
For sure, I do understand. I'm sorry, Becky.
No,
go ahead.
you're fine. We've asked for the offer, we've gotten it.
Right.
For sure, we understand that the timeline for everything this year has been pushed back because of COVID, because of the shutdown, and we know that, in fact, the process of selling this building was pushed back. So I'm not surprised by the short timeline, given that we're well into the last half of the year here. But if we can get it together and get a favorable amount for the building, make sure it doesn't cost us anything, I think that's the best direction to go. Otherwise, we're going to be heating that thing in another cold winter, and worrying about a couple grand is going to seem like peanuts after we pay for that heating bill.
Didn't we say the operating expense is what, 50,000 a year? Is that accurate?
That would have been with
Occupants, right?
custodial.
Gotcha.
You know, we certainly will expect less not being in the building.
Right.
But
It's gonna
yes,
cost
there
us
will
more
be
than
there will be a
$10,000.
cost to, you know, keep it heated to the point where things are safe.
Plus snow removal, plus sidewalk maintenance, right?
Right.
And you don't close on the deal until after they've been approved for their
Right.
funding.
There are
So-
several contingencies in
Yes.
that purchase
Yeah.
offer that are the hoops that they have to jump through.
And this is the February funding, if I remember right, and then I
Yep.
think it's October is when the second round is. so-
Correct.
So
This one, they're pretty positive about the February because it's a combined urban and rural grant opportunity. So because nothing was done last October, there's a fairly big pool of money available, and they're fairly certain that they will qualify the way the building scores for the grants. So they're hungry to buy as much as we are to sell. And in terms of removing the liability from the district, well, Dr. Tritt is right. We've had other opportunities that didn't pan out, but I would just encourage the board to allow me to pursue this relatively aggressively so that we can get things done.
And on that note, those contingencies, if that's going to push our timeline out, I wouldn't be offended if you at least got some of that building upkeep covered if we're going to have to keep it through the winter.
Okay.
You know, I'm saying we don't want to get rich, but we'd really like to lose that liability or at least get some financial coverage for it. Any other discussion?
Yeah. So the directive from the board is to attempt to capture costs related to the sale and potential upkeep costs until the transaction occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I believe we have concurrence on that.
Got it.
All right, next discussion item, the Lenawee County Association of School Board not even going to do the acronym. Appointment of representative. This was Mike's seat. They don't meet until, there's no action with that position until next March. Is it?
I think that they,
I thought it was December.
Is it
I
December?
think they have a December meeting, but I don't know the format or the location.
Fair enough. So we need to appoint someone, not tonight, but we do have to have discussion about it. Is there anyone present out of the four of us who would like to volunteer for that?
Considering I'm not going to be here after January, I'll pass.
Come on, Ed.
It makes no sense for you to have to reappoint somebody
There used to
after.
be a free dinner, but I don't think that they'll even serve dinner for this year's
I thought it
meeting.
was a 7
Really?
a.m. meeting. Is this a different one?
I think the one in the spring is a
That's the
morning meeting. I
legislative
think the
meeting.
one in the fall is a dinner.
Okay.
Did you say you wanted to?
What time?
That's what I heard. I
That's-
think
that's
Becky
what I
said
heard.
that she was
Time.
volunteering.
I've been under the impression this was a 7 a.m. thing. Do we know what time they meet? Says,
I
you know,
don't.
barely make it here for my budget committee meeting.
Terry, could you please
Yeah, we can do
check
that.
and see what
Yeah.
the commitment is for meeting times and such?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it says on the action items that we're appointing somebody to that. Are we not?
I thought that was on the next one we were.
It's on the
appointing.
action item here
Well, we
too.
had it last time for discussion and moved it to this time for.
So whoever's not here tonight.
Uh-huh, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Nailed it is. If it's an evening thing, I can try to make that work. What?
You're volunteering?
Sure.
Before she
Change
changes her mind, we ought to
Let's
go to
get
action item.
I think they,
They do a legislative breakfast in the spring.
right. That's
But
the 7 a.m.
the one coming up in December is an evening meeting. So if we have to send a substitute to the spring meeting, we could do that. But we have to have
I think
somebody
they gotta fill their roster.
holding a name place.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but after the elections, these all come back up for
Right.
vote.
So
So you're just
March-
having to worry about the December one.
And the December
After the
one is what
election, you'll
time?
worry about the next year.
I don't have a time for the
Okay.
December meeting.
All right. Well, December's not a busy period for me, so we'll make it work. There we go.
Okay.
We
thank
have our
you.
solution. With that, we will move directly into our action items.
All right.
First action item is our district audit. Ms. Brooks,
I hereby move to accept and approve the 2019 through 2020 district audit for Tecumseh Public Schools as presented and direct administration to fulfill the requirements to file the audit with the Treasury Department. Can I get a second?
support. Roll call vote. Ed,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Approved. Next action item.
I hereby move to approve the following board policies: the 5,000 series students and 6,000 series finance, and direct administration to update the policies on the webpage.
Support again. Roll call vote. Tim,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Policies are approved. And we have appointment to the Lenawee County School Board.
I think I can get the name right.
I think so.
I hereby move to appoint myself, Rebecca Brooks, as the Tecumseh Public School Board's Board of Education representative to serve on the Lenawee County Association of School Boards. Note, this is due to the vacancy of the resignation of member Michael McNamara, who previously held the position.
Support.
Roll call. Tim,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
chair votes yes. And last action item, Becky.
I hereby move that the Tecumseh Public Schools Board of Education supports and approve the concept of developing a Lenawee County Career and Technical Education 10-year plan for the period beginning in 2020 and continuing through 2030, and support and approve the overarching goal to increase student participation in career and technical education programs that will lead to credentials beyond high school, so that at least 60% of Lenawee County working-aged adults have a college degree and/or industry-recognized credentials by 2030.
Support. Roll call. Ed?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Which brings us to the consent agenda.
Oh, you want me to do that? I hereby move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the following items: minutes from the regular board meeting of September 28th, 2020, and minutes from the finance committee meeting of 2020.
Support.
Support.
Roll call vote. Tim?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Consent agenda is approved. Next up is our superintendent's report. Mr. Hilderly?
Okay, a few things to update you on. November school board election candidates. We have 3 vacancies that will be filled in the November election. We have 2 incumbents in Mrs. Brooks and Mr. Johnson. And we have 3 applicants, right, Terry?
4.
Additional.
Right.
We have Mr. Greg Lewis, Mr. Tony Ribatero,
Lynn Davis.
Lynn Davis, so 3. So 5 candidates for the 3 open positions for the community to consider. The Supreme Court ruling has, of course, changed things quite a lot in not only society but public schools specifically. And what gets brought up a lot is that the Supreme Court ruling declared wearing masks as unconstitutional. That is not what the Supreme Court ruling said. What the Supreme Court ruled was that the law that Governor Whitmer was accessing to make executive orders was invalid after April 30th. After April 30th, she had to receive basically permission from the legislature to continue using that law. She did not receive that from the legislature, and therefore the Supreme Court ruled that she did not have the authority to make any of those executive orders after April 30th. So it kind of sent things into a bit of a tailspin because there were nearly 200 executive orders. So we have tried to respond. A couple of weeks ago, we weren't going to wear masks, and then the next day, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services made an order of their own, accessing different legislation on the books that gives them the power to, in emergencies of public health, make certain proclamations. And their current mask order is set to last until October 30th. So we are now responding to and get frequent updates on health department guidelines, either from the state or through our county health department. And that's the one that really applies to us, because in our preparedness plan for returning to school, we say that we're going to follow health department guidelines. So they are currently supporting the state guidelines, and therefore we are in masks K-12 and adhering to all of the guidelines for group size, for indoor and outdoor events. And that is something that is supported not only by the health department, but actually today we had a press release. It was a joint statement from the county law enforcement, also stating that these things will be enforced. So that's where we are. Kind of the same rules, but a different version from a different source. And we'll see how it plays out. One of the things that the Supreme Court said in their opinion was that now the governor and the legislature should begin working together to address these issues. And I know that they went back to work. They normally, traditionally in Michigan, they take October and November off for deer hunting. But the legislature is back to work and has been since last week, entertaining lots of bills that are related to the things that are covered in the executive order. So we'll see what comes from it, and we will continue to follow the guidelines that are supported by our health department. Update on the THS Return to Learn. Last night, sent an announcement, first specifically to high school families, that it was our decision administratively to bring the high school back from its current distance setting into a hybrid plan. Earlier this year, just before school opened, we had a teacher leadership group present to us a version of learning that would be in a hybrid plan where kids were in person for 2 days a week and were at a distance for 3 days a week. The benefit to that plan right now for us is the additional social distancing that we receive from implementing that plan. Currently, we're reacting to positive cases, and if a kid sits within 6 feet of anybody in that classroom or is within 6 feet of the classroom teacher, all of those people are considered close contacts and have to be quarantined for 14 days. So for the next 4 weeks, until the end of the first marking period, we're going to use that teacher-created plan and have kids beginning on Thursday the 16th interact with our curriculum in that format. And I think right now the added benefit that we get to the social distancing is important. And we will be bringing the issue back to the board. As you know, under the extended continuity of learning plan, the board has to recertify our approach to the modes of instruction every 30 days. So at the end of this month, the board will weigh in and say, yes, we're going to keep these 3 modes, or we're going to modify this. Each month, the board has to react to those plans. So the board can certainly have input on how we do things after the first marking period is over, and we'll make a decision. It's been said since we began developing these plans early in the summer that we were going to have to be flexible and that we were going to have to be able to change on the fly. The distance learning gives us that opportunity. It comes with its difficulties, specifically in the high school where teachers are being asked to teach live students and distance students at the same time. So it isn't ideal, but honestly, most people's employment situation requires them to do things now in a way that they're not terribly comfortable with. So we'll continue to work through it. We heard tonight that the transportation department enjoyed, one of their cleanest starts since Ben's been here. And administratively, that's what we worked on all summer to do, was to create a plan that allowed for good things to happen. And even when the news is not positive, we can adjust and react on the fly in ways that give our kids the best opportunity to be safe and also keep their learning moving forward. So that's where we are with the THS Return to Learn. Griff communicated those specific guidelines to parents tonight. We're giving teachers plenty of time to adjust because that doesn't happen until Thursday. We've got SAT testing for our seniors on Wednesday, and the quarantine ends on Tuesday. So the timeline just sort of flows that way. And the first group will be in person back here on Thursday.
So, just looking at that schedule, that means Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, you really have half of the number of kids coming to school.
Around 300, Griff? Okay.
And then Wednesdays, no busing, right? Because they wouldn't.
There'll still be busing. Ben tells me even right now, while the high school's been in distance, that they continue to have their route run the way that it should run. Otherwise, your computer program goes haywire. Is that right?
That's part of it.
Oh.
You know, if the student needs a ride, this is your pickup time. We need to be there in case they need to get to school.
Right.
Yeah,
The
but I
other
mean,
thing that we have is that we've got kids who need a pickup in case they are going to the tech center. We also offer in-person use of our Wi-Fi network.
Okay.
So if we have any students who have poor connectivity issues, they can still be here and we can spread them out. As you come in, you see in the hall there, we've got tables usually used for lunch, but we can spread kids out in there. And then if there are any special needs students whose needs can't be met in the distance learning format, we have those kids in place in person as well. So transportation still gets used a little bit, no matter what format we use.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to see after we get through this first 9 weeks, to go back to the original plan, because what hasn't been happening is there hasn't been any testing done.
Any what?
Any testing. So
Okay.
kid has a close contact. They go home. They've been notified you're a close contact. You got to quarantine. Well, mom and dad live in the house. You got a couple other siblings maybe in the house. They're going to a different school. We haven't stopped the spread of this virus. And the only way you're going to stop it is to test. And I know the health department's telling you, well, no, they just need to quarantine. But the CDC guidelines are saying if you have close contact with someone with COVID, you need to get a test. And there's one test that will actually tell if you have the disease or not, whether you got symptoms or not. And it's a PCR test. Looks for the genetic code of the virus.
It's an antibody test.
Nope, it's not the antibody, it's the PCR test. So it's actually looking for the genetic code of the virus in your system. So, because you can have the virus still in your system 3 weeks later and be asymptomatic. But it's going to tell you if you've got the virus in your system. There's another one that tells you if you've developed into full-blown COVID. But we need to be doing the testing, because if we're not doing the testing, all we're doing is adding to the problem. So, and I would be, if I were you, I'd have the health department come in. I don't understand why they're not doing it. I don't. The CDC says that you've got to test. If you have close contact, get a test. Nurses are doing it at nursing homes. They got to get a test every so often. Even if they have no symptoms, they're getting a test. So the testing works. So we need to test. Even though we've got half the amount of students in here, you're still going to have kids within 6 feet of each other. They're going to sit at the lunch table, take off their mask, eat their lunch. We're still going to have it. They're going to go to football practice or basketball or volleyball or cheerleading. They're going to still be within each other. The only way you stop this is tests. So if someone has a confirmed case of COVID, anybody with a close contact needs to be tested. That's how I feel.
And
about
again, you've had already a break or two with the people that have been positive, and that's why we had to close down the high school. Have we come up with anybody that has contracted it from those positive cases? As in, hey, this is the second person that got it, in a kind of a progression of, or are they all
We've
just pretty
been
much negative?
notified that we have some additional students who've been tested positive, but their connectivity has been through family members.
Right,
And
but
not
none
through school.
not through
And
school. You
they're
haven't been able
individuals
to-
who've been out of school,
Yeah.
so they don't trace back to any of our other people. So, no, we don't have a lot of tracing right now that tells us that, we have new cases.
Good. But this-
And I know when Tim says we, he's talking in third person. Societally, it would be nice if testing was
Well, I think-
broader.
But I think as TPS, we need to require it. It's free. All health insurance companies are waiving the fees for it. So it's free. And, you don't hear anybody saying I can't get a test anymore.
Right. Well,
So I
What
just,
we're told by the health department is that a negative test does not break quarantine. That if a person is a close contact, that they have to quarantine for 14 days regardless of any test up until day 13.
that doesn't make sense.
Because
to
they
me.
say that symptoms can develop as late as day 14.
But the PCR test will tell you if you have the virus. So it doesn't matter if you got symptoms or not. This is getting spread by asymptomatic people.
Right.
So I think as a school, we need to say before you can come back, you gotta have a test. If you test negative, there's no reason not to come
Mhm.
back. You don't have the virus in your body. Why would you not come back? It's looking for the genetic code of the virus. The
But
testing
I think part of the problem is when you're talking about three different types of tests,
right. There's the
It's-
antibody.
right?
Yep.
But what is the primary available one that's out there? And I'm not sure if when you go down to the new hospital that they're not still doing just the regular old test. They're not
Right.
doing the PCRs.
Yeah.
That
Well,
takes a while to get back.
it's usually about 24 hours. It's got to go to the lab and come back. But, I think we really need to dig into that because everybody's living in fear. Everybody's like, the kid's sitting at home. With this family member, are the parents supposed to go to work?
Yeah, because they would be a contact to a contact.
Right.
So
So
according to the health department, they don't have to quarantine.
that doesn't make any sense to me. Because the kid could be asymptomatic, still spread it to his parents.
Yep.
They could be asymptomatic, spread it to someone else. It just doesn't make sense.
And again, when it comes to
That
those
may-
sorts of guidelines, the school districts are just passengers on the same train.
I know,
Right.
but we got to be better than passengers.
But even if they do the test and they don't have the genetic code that day, that doesn't mean they won't next week.
Right.
Right. That's
And
right.
that's the
But
problem.
at least you know from that experience they don't have it. And that kid could come back to school after he gets his negative results. So, and that's how you stop the spread of it. Instead of the kids sitting at home with the siblings who go to Herrick Park and not Herrick Park, but Patterson and Kempsey Acres and so forth. It's, I don't know.
Now, for sure, we're coming up on,
I think we
we have
really
to
got to.
recertify our plan.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. The extended continuity of plan will have to be recertified at the next meeting. It has to be. Originally, they said every 30 days, but now they've changed it to monthly because not all board meeting schedules fit in that 30-day envelope. So it's been revised to say monthly that you will consider the extended plan, and that mostly relates to your modes of instruction, but it also refers to your preparedness plan, and that's where all your health guidelines are.
So in the interim, what's the frequency of the meetings with the health department and the superintendents in the county right now? Is it as needed or is there a scheduled one?
It's as needed. The last time that we had a superintendent's meeting that included somebody from the health department was probably August.
Okay, so it's been a while since we had one of those.
It has been.
Well, perhaps as a individual school district, maybe contact the health department and contact Truon. We've got a couple weeks before we have to recertify that plan, and we could have this discussion with
Yeah.
a little bit more information. The landscape's changed quite a bit in the last week since the Supreme Court. It's been every 2 days the landscape changes, and then our attorneys come out with new guidance, and we got it on Friday. I think was the last time we got new guidance. So
Okay.
by then they should hopefully have all of this figured out, because I know that the guidance we got in our email from Friday had some maybes in it and some possiblies. And I think that by then we should have some definite answers, including on testing, both from our attorney's office and from the health department.
Okay.
And we can reevaluate our plan moving forward to see if it's something that's feasible or permissible.
So right now, any student or employee that is identified positive for COVID, they must have a negative test in order to return. What I think you're suggesting, Tim, is that we require a negative test for the return of anybody on quarantine as well.
I'm saying as soon as we find out that they're a close contact, they go get that PCR test. If it comes back negative, Get back in school. You don't have the virus.
How sensitive is it? I mean,
Right now,
they're
we
saying
wouldn't be
that
able to do that.
talking 12, 13 days from the time exposure to you end up with a positive test.
But
You
this
still
is,
have that window.
this is checking for the genetic code. I mean, it's the same thing that they're using at the hospitals for doctors and nurses that had exposure. They get tested, comes back negative, they're back to work. They're not out for 14 days. So same thing with nursing
Okay.
homes. So
So I'll look into that timeline. I know that we've had discussions with the health department.
See how
Over the
readily,
last
see
few
how
weeks.
readily available those tests are.
And
I don't know.
the feedback from the health department so far has been, regardless of your testing status, you still have to serve a 14-day quarantine. So if we can get around that guideline or change it, I will check into it. But from my experience in the first 5 weeks, when we quarantine a student, they give them a date of when they could return, and only they can adjust that date.
Well, that landscape has also changed with the new orders from the state health department. So as I said, in the last week, there's been a lot of changes.
Right.
So I think it would be appropriate to take our time to do our homework on this.
I agree. I just, what I'm saying is that they're not even, our local health department's not even following the CDC guidelines about testing. So same thing with our state associations telling us that we're going to lose, $700 last year's budget, $700 this year's budget. We need to do our own research and quit listening to these associations and stuff. So, I mean, as a business owner, I don't listen to associations and run my business off of that. So we need to really, I think, dig into this stuff and make sure we're protecting our students and our community.
Last item on my report is the superintendent evaluation process. So we will have a facilitated evaluation that will take place at the November what date? The first meeting in November. I think it's the 11th. 9th. Okay. So the evaluation process has to be wrapped up for December to meet the timeline. So Mark Tobias will be back from MASB. He's the one who presented in January on how the process works. And I think he will be, or maybe has been, in touch with Kevin.
He has not been yet. I'm keeping the ear out for the phone call.
Right. So that's coming up in another month, and we'll get that process wrapped up. So that's it for me.
All right, then. Items for next agenda. The good news will include the introduction of a communications director. We have not had a communications director since
July.
I was going to say June.
Well, we have.
Feels like
but,
June.
It's been me, so
Yeah, we'll get somebody
probably
in
better
that
that I
seat
get off of
to
Facebook.
get 100% handle on all of our website and communications. Discussion items will include the Building Futures Committee report that we discussed earlier. Action items will be minutes approved, hopefully, from the Facilities and Grounds Committees, minutes from the Budget Committee, and the Extended Continuity Learning Plan we were just referring to. That brings us to our closing. Public comment on any topic. Do we have any public comments? Not sure we have any public here. All right. Board member discussion and comments. Any board member discussion or comment? Well, I'll fill this time then. First, hello, everybody. I see administrators from the school and people we haven't seen in months and months. It's good to see you again. Thank you very much for attending. Secondly, with regard to the change in the high school curriculum or the change in the delivery to the hybrid, I think that is a very pragmatic decision, driven primarily by the cases we've had and the need to spread them out. And I am happy that we had that backup plan, or that plan B, or that second plan that was developed right at the start of school, so we can slide right into that. And I hope it works out as well as it seemed would when it was presented. And with that, that brings us to an adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
So I'll support that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:58 PM. Thank you, everyone.